During the most intense years of his contemplative life, Padre Pio of Pietrelcina experienced spiritual revelations that transcended ordinary understanding. Among all the extraordinary visions that marked his existence, there is one in particular that deeply shocked even bishops and ecclesiastical authorities. This vision involved purgatory, that intermediate state between earthly death and heavenly bliss, a place whose reality is often forgotten in contemporary Christian thought. What Padre Pio witnessed in that mystical experience would reveal unsettling truths about the suffering of souls, about the crucial importance of prayers for the dead, and about the undeniable reality of divine justice. Father Pio was born in 1887 in a small town in southern Italy, into a humble peasant family that lived with genuine faith and simplicity. From childhood, he demonstrated an extraordinary spiritual sensitivity that caught the attention of those who knew him. His parents noticed that the boy spent long hours in prayer, often setting aside typical childhood games to dedicate himself to divine contemplation. At the age of 15, he entered the Capuchin friars, embracing a life of spiritual rigor, poverty, and absolute devotion to God. However, it would not be until decades later that his extraordinary spiritual gifts would become publicly and undeniably evident. In 1918, during the celebration of Mass, Padre Pio received the stigmata, the wounds of Christ, which would remain on his body for 50 consecutive years. His hands, feet, and heart were marked with the same wounds that Christ suffered on the cross. Daily, real blood flowed from his wounds witnessed by skeptical doctors who could not scientifically explain the phenomenon. But beyond the visible stigmata, Padre Pio possessed even more extraordinary spiritual gifts. He could read people's hearts, knew their hidden sins, and perceived their most secret intentions. Multitudes traveled from all over the world to confess to him, seeking not only absolution, but also the spiritual guidance of someone who could truly penetrate the mysteries of the human soul. During those years of intense spiritual activity, spending long hours in the confessional, Padre Pio gradually acquired a profound understanding of the soul's state after death. His closest collaborators testified that he frequently spoke of souls in purgatory, who approached him asking for prayers and masses. He did not describe these experiences as hallucinations or pious imaginings, but as realities as concrete and present as those of any living person. He recounted conversations with these souls, understood their particular anguish, and knew the names of living people who could intercede for them. But it was during a specific mystical experience, widely documented by his close collaborators and ecclesiastical authorities, that Padre Pio received a particularly disturbing revelation about the nature of purgatory. During this extraordinary experience, he was spiritually guided to contemplate this intermediate realm with a clarity and depth that left an indelible mark on his theological understanding. What he witnessed there would profoundly shock even those bishops and hierarchical superiors of the Church accustomed to mystical accounts and supernatural experiences. In his vision, Padre Pio did not see purgatory as a place vaguely described in theology books, but as a dynamic and unsettling reality. He saw souls being purified through extraordinary suffering, a suffering entirely different from that of hell. While hell is characterized by the absolute rejection of God and eternal despair, purgatory is a place of paradoxical hope. The souls there suffer intensely, but they know with certainty that they will ultimately reach God. They know that their damnation is temporary, not eternal. They know that with every prayer of the living they draw closer to blessedness. The most disturbing thing Padre Pio witnessed was realizing how many souls are being purified in a way that goes virtually unnoticed. There are countless multitudes of souls in purgatory, he told his fellow friars, and few of the living remember to pray for them. These souls suffer in spiritual loneliness, waiting for an intercession that may never come. Padre Pio described seeing souls pleading with the living to offer a simple Mass for them, a morning prayer, a voluntary sacrifice. And often these pleas went unanswered because the living simply didn't know or didn't care. The revelation shocked the bishops because of its unsettling implications. If purgatory is so real, if the souls there suffer so intensely, if they implore the intercession of the living with such desperation, then the Church had failed in its mission to awaken the consciences of the faithful to this crucial reality. Most practicing Catholics had only a vague idea of purgatory. Many Protestants had rejected the idea altogether, thus denying themselves a profound understanding of divine mercy. And even many Catholics, when thinking about death, imagined only two destinations, heaven or hell. Purgatory had become a theoretical truth, not a reality that guided the daily actions of the faithful. Immediately after this vision, Padre Pio began to insist with renewed urgency on the importance of masses for the dead. He asked his fellow friars to celebrate more masses specifically dedicated to the souls in purgatory. He asked the faithful to understand that their prayers were not in vain, that they not only reached beyond the veil of death, but had the literal power to alleviate the suffering of the souls being purified. He began to offer his own physical pains, the sufferings of the stigmata, specifically for the release of the souls in purgatory. Every drop of blood that flowed from his wounds he offered as a sacrifice for those being purified. The bishops investigating Padre Pio received testimonies from people who had been visited by souls after approaching him for prayers. One widow recounted that her deceased husband appeared to her in a dream after she asked Padre Pio to offer a mass for him. Her husband appeared radiant, surrounded by light, and said he had just come out of purgatory. Another man described how his mother appeared to him, thanking him for the prayers he had offered following Padre Pio's instructions. These accounts were not imaginary or irrational. They were testimonies from sensible and trustworthy people who had no interest in fabricating stories. What most impacted the bishops was understanding the spiritual urgency of Padre Pio's message. It wasn't mere religious piety, nor a sentimental attempt to keep people tied to the Church through fear. It was a plea based on direct knowledge of a reality that Padre Pio had witnessed. Essentially, he was saying, there are souls waiting for you right now. They know their names. They know they can pray for them. Every time you offer a Mass, every time you pray the Rosary for their intention, you are literally saving them from immediate suffering. You have the real power to influence eternity through your present actions. Father Pio recounted that, during his vision of purgatory, he saw souls from all eras and all walks of life. There were priests being purified for spiritual negligence. There were mothers being purified for not having guided their children well. There were businessmen who needed to be purified of greed. There were intellectuals and artists, soldiers and kings, servants and masters. They all shared something in common. They knew the reality of God. They had been saved, but they needed a complete transformation to be able to be in the divine presence. Purgatory is not a punishment, Father Pio explained. It is transformation. It is the process by which God completes the work of sanctification that he began in this life. One of the most disturbing revelations was that Padre Pio saw in purgatory the souls of people he had known in life. People who seemed saintly in life were being purified of unsuspected flaws. This discovery led to the understanding that true holiness is much deeper than outward appearances. We judge people by their visible actions, but God sees the heart. God understands hidden motives, conflicting intentions, and the traumas that have distorted our capacity to love fully. And in his mercy, he offers a healing process in purgatory for those who truly love him but have not yet been completely transformed. Father Pio then began to offer very specific advice to his penitents on how they could help the souls in purgatory. He recommended that they celebrate masses for them, offer their own daily sufferings, headaches, frustrations, losses, as a sacrifice for the liberation of these souls, pray the Rosary with this intention, perform works of charity, and fast for the dead. He taught that every act of genuine love, every moment when someone refused to sin when they could have, every small sacrifice offered for other souls, was a coin in God's economy that could be spent for the liberation of suffering souls. The most revolutionary aspect of his teaching, however, was his insistence that we should pray not only for our relatives, but also for forgotten souls, those whose names no one remembers anymore, those whose relatives have died, those who died alone, perhaps even in sin, but who repented at the last moment. There are, Padre Pio said, countless forgotten souls in purgatory awaiting intercession. and every prayer offered for them, even by a complete stranger, is received with indescribable gratitude. Because that soul, at last, feels remembered, feels that someone cares, that it has not been completely forgotten. The bishops investigating these accounts were deeply moved by the coherence and depth of the teaching. It was not a contradictory doctrine, nor did it violate the Church's traditional teachings. Rather, it was a profound elaboration of a teaching that had always been part of the Catholic faith, but had fallen into oblivion. Padre Pio, in essence, was awakening the Church to a forgotten truth. He was reminding the faithful that death does not end the relationship between the living and the dead, that there is a continuous communion that persists beyond the grave. During his later years, as Padre Pio aged and his health declined, he intensified his pleas regarding the importance of purgatory. He claimed to have seen the end times approaching, and that it would be crucial for the faithful to understand this truth before the final judgment. He reported that the number of souls being purified was increasing, because more and more people were living in continual sin and repenting on their deathbeds. These souls were especially in need of intercession, for they had left very little holiness in their lives. One of the last great revelations that Padre Pio received was the understanding of the interconnectedness of all souls. Whoever prays for an unknown deceased person is ultimately praying for themselves, because we are all connected as members of the mystical body of Christ. Every time you alleviate the suffering of a soul, you transform the spiritual vibrations of the entire universe. Every prayer offered creates waves of mercy that extend to unimaginable dimensions. No prayer is in vain. No tear shed in compassion is wasted. No sacrifice offered is forgotten. The bishops who heard Padre Pio describe these experiences began to understand that he had received a particular charism, the ability to make real, tangible, and urgent a truth that had become abstract. Most Christians believed in purgatory in theory, but they did not live as if they truly believed. Padre Pio was transforming an intellectual belief into a reality that would motivate daily actions. In doing so, he was recovering a crucial aspect of Christian tradition that had been lost: the mutual responsibility we have for the dead. In the last weeks of his life, Padre Pio received many visitors who wished to receive his final blessing. He often told them, "When I die, remember to pray for me. I will need your prayers." Even on his deathbed, he maintained the conviction that we continue to need one another after death, that death does not separate us, but rather makes us even more dependent on each other, that those of us who remain on earth have the sacred responsibility to intercede for those who have departed. When Padre Pio died in 1968, many people reported dreams in which he appeared to them, often accompanied by other souls, expressing his gratitude for the masses offered in his honor. Some claim to have seen him in dreams surrounded by people he had helped in life, people he had freed through his spiritual direction and extraordinary gifts. The religious community he served for decades continued to offer special masses in his honor for many years after his death. But Padre Pio's most enduring legacy was not his beatification, nor the miracles attributed to his intercession, nor even his extraordinary stigmata. His true legacy was to rekindle in the Christian conscience the urgency of purgatory, the reality of the souls who suffer and need our prayers, and the importance of living with the understanding that we are united to the deceased through a communion that death cannot break. Padre Pio transformed an abstract ecclesiastical truth into a living truth that continues to inspire the actions of the faithful to this day. Therefore, when you offer a Mass for a deceased loved one, remember that you are participating in something sacred. When you pray the Rosary for the intentions of the dead, remember that these prayers truly transcend the veil and bring real comfort. When you offer a voluntary sacrifice for the liberation of souls, remember that you are literally saving someone from suffering. This is not religious poetry. It is the truth that Padre Pio witnessed. It is the reality that impacted him so deeply that he dedicated his final years to proclaiming it. If you have lost a loved one, perhaps they are waiting for your prayer right now. If you know the story of someone who died alone, whose family members have also passed away, that person could be in purgatory, completely forgotten. You could be the one to offer the prayer that finally sets them free. You could be the one to remember them when no one else cares. This is what Padre Pio wants you to understand. This is the message he brought back from his disturbing vision of purgatory. Begin today. Celebrate Mass. Pray the Rosary. Offer a small sacrifice. Perform a good deed in memory of someone who has died. Participate in the great communion of saints living and dead who are united through prayer. You possess more power than you imagine. Your present actions have eternal consequences. And when your time comes, you too will be grateful for the prayers of those you leave behind. May God bless all the living and all the dead. May Padre Pio intercede for us. And may we never forget those who suffer, awaiting our prayers.